The airport developments in the Philippines has been one of the most interesting stories within the last few years. Projects such as the new Manila International Airport and the planned Sangli Airport are among the candidates to become the next premier hub for the city of Manila. While waiting for those projects to be completed, the current Manila Airport remains the primary air hub for the city. Yet there is another airport, the Clark International Airport in Pampanga, which is considered an alternative to the Manila Airport. It's an airport that's history as a major U.S. military airbase has been long documented, though in the recent last few decades it has made a transition to become one of the emerging air hubs of the Philippines. Clark Airport is expected to make headlines as it is anticipated that the new passenger terminal will be opened. So in anticipation of that event, this video will highlight the history of the Clark International Airport, primarily focusing on the aviation-related activities. Over 90 kilometers away from Metro Manila, the area of the Clark Airport is an hour or two drive away from Manila, where it has transformed from once being a U.S. military installation to the Clark Freeport Zone. However, if you do happen to go visit the area, you'll find many reminders of the history of the area. Within years of gaining control of the Philippines, the U.S. military established an army base in the area which was called Fort Stotzenburg in 1903. It then became an air base for the U.S. Army Signal Corps and the Aviation Section, which would later be renamed after a young U.S. military aviator named Harold Clark. The airbase would host a variety of military aircraft leading up to World War II, when the airfield was later occupied and used by the Japanese military. Following World War II and the recapturing of the Philippines by U.S. forces, the Philippines would gain its independence, though the U.S. military, under a U.S. and Philippine agreement, would maintain its military presence in the bases in the Philippines, especially at Clark Air Base, which would go on to be one of the largest U.S. military installations overseas. The airbase would take part in military operations with the conflicts in Korea and later Vietnam. While serving as a military base, it also had other support and recreational facilities for those stationed there along with their families. Very much it was America in Asia, which during its peak years had around 15,000 residents. At the centerpiece was the airbase, which featured two long parallel runways, which also happened to be some of the largest in the Philippines. However, leading into the 1990s, the presence of the U.S. military would later end, starting of the non-renewal of the base usage agreement between the Philippines and the U.S. And then the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991 further accelerated the end of the military presence. Following the closure of the Clark Air Base, the facilities were very much in shambles and abandoned. Looters would often come in and take what they could get, along with the debris that came with the volcanic eruption. For the early part of the 1990s, there wasn't much activities going on at the old airbase facilities, though the Philippine government was already planning what to do with the property, laying the foundations for what would be a complete transformation of the area. Spearheading the efforts to rehabilitate the area, the Philippine government established the area surrounding it as the Clark Special Economic Zone, and one of those goals was for Clark Airport to be a future gateway to the Philippines that would be developed with the existing facilities, covering around 2,500 hectares. Still leading up to the year 2000, there wasn't much commercial aviation developments at Clark. It wouldn't be until after 2000 when the first commercial flights would start the transition of Clark Airport from a former abandoned military airbase to become one of the new airports for the Philippines. The first opportunities for Clark Airport actually came in the form of cargo flights. Another former military installation that was abandoned, the Subic Airport, welcomed cargo flights from FedEx by the early 2000s. In response, in 2001, rival cargo airline UPS established its Philippine hub at Clark Airport. From the UPS hub at Clark, the cargo airline would operate flights to within the region as well as to other cities such as Cologne, Mumbai, and Dubai. In 2003, the airport was renamed after former President Diosdado Macapagal, and a year later, the vision for passenger flights at Clark Airport would take off, with the first passenger flights to and from Seoul Incheon operated by Asiana launched in 2004. The airport would get the attention of budget airlines such as the likes of AirAsia, which would launch its first flights to Clark from Kota Kinabalu and Kuala Lumpur in 2005. Following the launch of the Asiana flights, Clark would welcome more flights from regional cities, leading to the first domestic flights to Cebu by Cebu Pacific in 2006. With the interest in passenger travel growing to Clark, a new passenger terminal was opened in 2008. As passenger flights were being commenced, the airport also saw the increase in other aviation-related businesses such as maintenance facilities, and Clark became a hub for flight training in the Philippines. In situations of a shutdown of the Manila airport, Clark would become one of the key diversion airports for flights going to Manila when needed. If the 2000s were the rebirth of the Clark Airport as a commercial aviation hub, the 2010s would be the time when it matured to become a viable air travel hub for the Philippines. Leading the charge was AirAsia, which set up the initial hub for its operations of Philippines AirAsia at Clark in 2011. Along with the international flight network, the domestic network also began to pick up in the following years as airlines such as Philippine Airlines Cebu Pacific and AirAsia would add domestic flights to and from Clark. With the increasingly scarce flight slots becoming available at Manila's airport, major global airlines such as Emirates, Qatar Airways, and Korean Air started operating regular flights to and from Clark, establishing new non-stop and longer flights to cities such as Dubai and Doha. Since its opening to passenger traffic in the early 2000s, Clark Airport has reached its peak in passenger traffic in 2009, serving over 4 million passengers and 24,000 aircraft movements. It's one of those airports in the Philippines where it's increasingly easier to bypass Manila, with direct air links to major global aviation hubs such as Dubai, Doha, Singapore, Seoul, Tokyo, and Hong Kong. While it has grown in traffic, it has closed one of the 2 runways, giving space for an aviation repair facility. Along with the developments of the Clark Airport in recent decades, the area surrounding the Clark Airport facilities has gone through its own transformation as well. This coincides with the further developments of the Terminal 2 at Clark Airport, which was completed in October and is expected to be opened by sometime within this year. The new terminal will boost the passenger traffic by around 8 million, enabling the airport to handle around 12 million passengers annually. Looking forward, the future of the Clark Airport is being spearheaded by the North Luzon Airport Consortium, which has a 25-year contract to maintain and operate the airport. This group is made up of a consortium led by the JG Summit Company, which is behind Cebu Pacific, Philinvest, the Philippine Airport Group Support, and Changi Airports Philippines, a subsidiary of the Changi Airport Group of Singapore. Clark Airport is further developing as an air travel hub for the Philippines, and officials are working to further develop the connection between Manila and the Clark Airport to further promote the ease of access between the 2 points. The key selling points is the lack of the inconveniences that have been noted at Manila Airport, such as the long delays and congestion, and the route network does offer some good connecting options to other parts of the world, for example with Asiana to other parts of North America via Seoul, or Emirates to a destination in Europe via Dubai. Clark could also be an alternative airport for those living in the Visayas and Mindanao regions to travel to the northern Luzon area. However, the big limiting factor is the distance between most points in Metro Manila to Clark. Especially, it's just not practical for those living in the business districts of Metro Manila to have to commute to Clark to take a flight when there's a variety of options to travel to and from the current Manila airport. By comparison, the trip is over 90 kilometers and can take 1 to 2 hours, depending on where you're from in Metro Manila. This distance is way longer from some airports located far out of the cities they serve, such as the Seoul Incheon Airport, which is around 49 kilometers from Seoul, and Narita Airport, which is 60 kilometers to Tokyo. Both Incheon and Narita arguably have much better ground transportation options from the city to the airports. Clark may benefit from some of the traffic of businesses at Clark, though its future role could be diminished with the highly anticipated new Manila Airport in Bulacan and the planned Sangli Airport. Those airport projects could easily usurp the current role as the secondary airport from the city of Manila area. How do you see the role of Clark Airport in the Philippine aviation industry? I'd definitely love to hear your take, but in the meantime, I thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. This has been Flights in Asia, highlighting news and updates from the aviation and travel scene in the Asia Pacific. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.